I know it's been a while. I don't really have an excuse other than work and life has been crazy. Forgive me if this episode isn't in the normal, I guess, formatting that I usually set up for these episodes. But yeah, good morning. Welcome back to the show. It's been a while, hasn't it? I don't really have any other justification or excuse um, other than just life has happened. That is kind of the only thing I can say, I suppose, for lack of a better term or definition of, this sort of thing, right? And so, I think it's just like work's been picking up like crazy, surprisingly for the end of the year. Just personal matters. A lot's happened, right? And I just that's just been taking up a good chunk of my time. But I've finally had the time to sit down and sort of flush out both this and some other content stuff on my channel. So you're gonna get a bunch of stuff like in the coming days. That's just what it's gonna be. Um, so I'm very. This would technically be the October episode, I believe it is. I'm behind like 2 or 3 episodes. No, this would be September. Fuck, I'm super behind. But I'm gonna catch up. I'm gonna catch up this month. You're gonna get a lot this month and the next. Yeah, I'm really trying to show my commitment to this and putting more into this. And now it's just been when I have time and when I can set things up because I'm thinking about projects coming up at the beginning of next year, and also um, my reel, because I usually do update my reel in time for the first. So that's a lot of what I'm thinking of right now. And so yeah, just first of all, how you doing? I hope you've been well. I've been doing okay. um Again, work's been keeping me occupied, and also just mentally, emotionally, I'm doing okay. All things considered, I would say I'm doing pretty well. And I'm not saying this in like a bragging sort of way. I'm just saying because that's just where I'm at. And I think I kind of wanted to talk a little bit today. I want to talk a little bit about desire for something, because that's sort of been I've thought a little bit about kind of what my approach would be coming back to this. What's sort of that dialogue looking like? What um what are we doing here, right? And I kind of wanted to talk about being stubborn. You got to be stubborn. What do I mean by that? You got to be stubborn when it comes to certain things that you want. And in my case, it's just this career as a cinematographer is like the key antithesis, my magnum opus of my life, I guess. Which is a pretty big pedestal to put it on, right? I think for myself, me, I guess being stubborn about something is sort of putting it on a pedestal above where I think it should be. Um, and that includes putting it above, this sort of content thing, right? I think my priority and me knowing that, like, if I want to be where I want to go, I need to be stubborn about a lot of things. And one of those things is like discipline towards myself. And discipline can mean a lot of things. Discipline can mean, asserting yourself in work, whether putting more energy into shoots. That could also mean, putting in the time to sort of educate yourself and sort of learn more about certain processes, and that sort of thing. And, there's a million different directions you can go in as far as discipline. But I think the way that it's applied to my life, and it's allowed me to be more stubborn in work and all these sorts of things, is just sort of giving myself sort of a uh, level of refinement and an edge in terms of productions. Because I think that's at least in my experience, at least especially recently, I've sort of learned that like my edge is sort of my um, technical prowess, my sort of approach to things, and sort of what that dialogue is between myself, the director, production people, that sort of thing. Um, and I think you have to be sort of stubborn about, doing things the right way and doing your due diligence and making like checking all your boxes, dotting all your I's, whatever that phrase is, and giving the work that love and attention that it deserves. You know what I mean? It includes, putting other things on the back burner, um, if it means your success in this area. And I think that's sort of something that I've learned with time is like you kind of have to sacrifice a good chunk of things if you really want to be in a certain position. And I'm not saying that I'm in like the most amazing position in the world. Believe me, I can see all of the work ahead of me and I can see, sort of everything that needs to happen in order for certain things to be successful, in order for, you know, um, to have sort of the career that I want to have. There's so many different conversations that I need to have. There's so many different, people I still have to meet. There's so many different, lighting practices that I have to do. There's so many different things that I, have to get to before I hit this certain point, before I um, hit before I have certain conversations that I want to have, before I do all this stuff. That I have to do all the work in between it, and I have to commit myself 110%, even if it means pushing things to the side, if it means putting other things on hold, and if it means putting you know um, certain things pretty low on the totem pole. I got to get these things done. It just has to happen. I really do feel like, it's something that needs to happen in order for you to hit a certain point in your career. You have to sort of have an incredible amount of focus and an incredible amount of attention to detail that you normally wouldn't have otherwise. And that's kind of that threshold that I'm trying to hit right now, is that I'm trying to get out of the way of myself and out of the way of, I guess, my own biases, my own sort of thoughts. And I kind of talked about it in another video, talking about like staying grounded and stuff. But that sentiment also applies there, in the sense that like I need to sort of keep my eyes on the prize, and I sort of need to um, have a level of focus that I normally wouldn't have otherwise. And I guess that's more of what this episode is about, is what does it mean to have that level of focus, and what does it look like, for example. And I think it's kind of just what I've talked about before, just like putting things on the sidelines before sort of your craft, or sort of before, a lot of different things. And so um, that's where my head's been at right now. How am I doing with it? It's a muscle that I'm still working out every single day. It's definitely, there's still certain moments where I can't hit all my reps because giving out towards the end, there's still a lot of that happening where I'm still kind of hitting the growing pains of sort of what that discipline and exercise looks like. Um, but as far as things have gone, I feel like I've been revitalized. I feel like I've been more inspired and focused than I have been in a very long time, which has been like an incredible, challenge for me, because I'm sort of pushing myself past a point there where I normally would otherwise. I'm sort of challenging sort of everything I believed in. I've sort of challenged, everything that I've ever done, everything that I will do, um, and almost hitting a wall. I mean, I'm like not. I guess hitting a wall would be the wrong description. I would say I'm close to drowning. If that makes any sense. Like I feel like I'm very close to um hitting breaking past that barrier of what I've previously been known to tolerate. And now I'm sort of seeing the openings of things, whether it's my own ability or um sort of new avenues that I haven't been able to quite fully see before. And that is due to disciplining myself and being more careful about, the way that I do things and my process and that sort of thing. And that sort of sentiment sort of applies more broadly also. Been trying to eat healthier. I've been trying to exercise more. I've been very aware of like my personal health a lot. I'm recording this. I say this and I sound like a massive hypocrite because I'm recording this as I'm kind of congested and a little sick, but we're pushing through. We're pushing through. Again, being stubborn about it, be making this a priority. That's you know normally I would just say, "Oh no." Right now when I'm recording this, it's raining pretty hard in LA. Oh no, and I don't want to do this. I don't want to da 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 da. Nah, like I'm here. I'm recording this. I'm recording another thing also. I gotta be stubborn about it. And I gotta um be sure that um I'm active in that pursuit and that I'm showing myself moving from a place with love first rather than harsh discipline. Because if moving from a place of love, I think it gives you a level of like grace and integrity that I think you otherwise wouldn't have before. Think about it in the sense of like the way you would talk to your friends if they're dealing with something. Maybe not a breakup because you would be like, ah, fuck them, da 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 da. You're more angry that way. Um, think about it in the sense that like, hey, talk to yourself as if like a family member passed away. Talk to yourself in the sense that like you're like a kid and you're holding that version of yourself. Even if it's like a very elementary thing that kid would be mad at or upset about or crying about, whatever it is. I think you got to give yourself that level of like, treat yourself like a kid in a sense. Maybe it's like you got to go outside and walk a little bit. Maybe you got to give yourself some ice cream or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't have kids. I don't know what they need. I don't know what a TLC that means, but by quantifying it as like inner child sort of thing, I think has allowed me to sort of give more grace and like, you know, attention that um I feel like I otherwise wouldn't, you know what I mean? And so that's what it's been like. And again, it's a work in progress. We're both discovering this as we're discovering more information, and that sort of we're both figuring this out, and it's a retooling thing. It's certain gears need to be changed. It's maybe you need new fluids or whatever. There's certain parts of the process that I'm still figuring out and trying to refine, and what that looks like, I don't know. I don't 100% have big picture as far as what it looks like, but I'm slowly trying to introduce more acts of, I guess, kindness is what I'll phrase it as rather than discipline. Trying to introduce more acts of love and grace and kindness to myself that I wouldn't otherwise be doing. And I don't think I would normally be able to progress in the same way that I like. Again, there's certain moments where I have to give myself tough love, obviously. It's very difficult to wake up in the morning when it's cold as shit outside, knowing that I have to do like XYZ, you know what I mean? So, giving myself a level of like, you know what, it's going to be cool, it's going to be all right, you know what I mean? And so, you know, um, Yeah, that's I guess kind of the overarching sentiment. I'm being stubborn about sort of the discipline that I have, but that discipline is also coming from a place of love and grace and just tenderness that I think I have needed for a very long time. Um, so that's kind of where my head's at. I know this is a very short episode, and I think the next one will also be kind of short. But this is where I'm at. This is me introducing myself back into the rhythm of producing this show again. I'm a little rusty. You got to forgive me. But yeah, I hope you'll continue to follow along with me as I sort of figure this out. I'm changing a lot of production things with the way that I produce this channel. I'm changing a lot with the podcast. Visually, I've gotten some feedback from a few friends of mine, and I'm taking it into consideration. I'm producing more in that sense of content. I hate content, but like content, like I gotta feed the beast, like I said earlier. I gotta feed the algorithm, and this is part of it. And so yeah, that's where my head's at. Forgive me for the lightness on this episode. Forgive me for it being kind of short, but again, I got to give myself some grace and get back into this. Um, I got to go slow before I can hit that full, 60 miles an hour. I got to get that 1 through 59 miles an hour in first before I hit 60. Um, but yeah, hope you've been well. Hope you've enjoyed this episode, and we'll talk soon. Peace.